First of all, we've got to acknowledge the problem. Hey, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. But across the board, in churches and in our world, if people are going to heal from this addiction, we need to create an environment where that's possible. And the very first step is just recognizing, hey, this is an issue. The subject of sexuality needs to be addressed. Okay? Talk openly about sexuality. In order to set the environment up, we need to have permission. It's okay to talk openly about the subject of sexuality. Communicate God's vision for sex. Be that in sermons from the pulpit, in classes, via seminars, small group studies, whatever the avenue is. In our churches, we need to be talking openly, consistently communicating. This is what God's vision is. If you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about God's vision for sexuality, different characteristics of that. We live in a world where we're bombarded with messages that are opposite God's vision. So we need to consistently be reinforcing, this is what this is all about. This is the plan. This is how it works right. Okay? Dispel the shame surrounding the topic. I think too frequently in our histories, in order to be having conversations about sex, they have to be kind of whispered. You have to get off in a corner and talk quietly, or there's this feeling that if we're going to talk about that subject, we have to do it. We can't just do it like we talk about other things. And again, a lot of that is our culture, our church heritage, the families that we've lived in. It just may not be a comfortable topic to address, but ultimately, in order for people to feel comfortable seeking healing and talking about how they're going to address this issue in their own life, we're going to need to be able to talk openly without this sense of shame, without this inherent belief that what we're talking about is somehow bad, or there's something wrong just with the subject in and of itself. We need to create a safe environment for individuals to disclose struggles. Now, I am not in any way suggesting that the best environment is on a Sunday morning when the invitation song is being sung, that somebody come down, sit down here and say, let me tell you my whole sexual story. But we do need to give people permission. Hey, if you're having a struggle, there are ways within our church family that you can communicate that you can talk to our leadership. You can come to an elder or minister. Because, as we've already said, it's a subject that needs to be dealt with. It's a common thing. And so you have permission to talk about these kind of struggles. The idea is to reinforce to people it's safe. We're willing to walk this with you. It's okay to talk about this. Acknowledge that many struggle with sexuality in different forms. Some people struggle with behaviors. Some people struggle with thoughts. Some people just feel like they are bombarded with lustful temptation. And they may feel very guilty about the fact that they have these thoughts. They may not be acting out on them. They may not be behaving in the way they're thinking, but it may be very embarrassing and may feel a lot of guilt just because of the thoughts that they're having. Or they may be conflicted in their feelings. We need to be able to let people know, hey, this is a common thing. You're not the only person dealing with this issue. Be assured that you'll be supported. No matter what it is, we're here to walk this with you. We're here to offer you resources. We're here just to be a shoulder that you can lean on. We're here to support you in the process. Specify that no struggle is too bad to address. Now, even in the area of sexuality, we kind of have our hierarchy of sins. If a person struggles with lustful thoughts, that's okay. We can talk about that. The Bible talks about that. If a person is struggling with behaviors, well, that's a little worse than just a thought thing. But as long as it's heterosexual behavior, it's worse, but it's there. But we start talking about homosexual struggles, feelings of same-sex attraction. There are people of my own gender that I find, for some reason, I'm attracted to, or I want attention from, and it gets kind of sexualized. Then we kind of put that as, whoa. That's way down there. Or invert that, that's way up on the high top list of bad things. And if people are going to feel like there's an environment in our church families where they can be genuine and honest and try to get better, or try to change something they're wanting to change, we're going to have to stress, it doesn't matter what your struggle is. We're here to accept you and support you in your process of trying to deal with that. So whether it's heterosexual, homosexual behavior, thoughts, feelings, whatever it is, we're here to help you walk through this process of trying to become the person of integrity that God calls you to become. And then, lastly, be transparent about our own history. In other words, if this is something that you've dealt with, there are likely acceptable or appropriate ways to share that information with certain people. Again, I don't believe that God calls every single person to take a very public stance and say, this is something that I've dealt with in my past. Now, because of the nature of what I do, that's kind of a position I feel God has put me in, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast for me to be pretty open and transparent in a fairly public way. Not everybody has to do that. But there may be people that you know are struggling, that it would be a real encouragement to them if you could kind of share your own story with that person. Say, I've heard you say that this is a problem for you, or I'm kind of observing some things in your behavior, and it reminds me of some things that I used to do. And let me just tell you how God helped me deal with that in my life. Let me share with you where God has brought me, because sharing that may be the most encouraging thing. It may be a way that they feel like they can make a connection with someone who understands. And at least from my own experience and many people I've talked to in recovery, knowing that there's someone who's not going to be judgmental, who truly knows the struggle and can really understand where we're coming from, that can be such a breath of fresh air in an environment where typically we may not feel like people are real or genuine. If we perceive that other people in our church family, kind of come in, they put on their best dress, they act their best, and we feel like, man, other people just are so much better than I am, so much stronger. It's really hard for me to share what I'm really dealing with. If that's our impression of other people in our church family, it may be really hard to begin that process. If we feel like people are genuine because they're sharing in ways that are kind of vulnerable to us, and again, in appropriate places, that may be a great way to help create an environment where people are willing to seek healing.